First story. Wife gets the clap and tries to blame me. It backfired horribly. Long story. Myself, 30 male, met my soon-to-be ex-wife, 25 female. We'll call her Taylor to keep our identities safe. At a call center we both started working for at the same time. Our first day she was 20 minutes late and came in carrying what I could only assume to be most of her world at the time with her, and instantly I knew I would marry this woman. She was gorgeous, sweet, round in all the right places, and we had much in common, from music taste to books, movies, and even games we enjoyed. Our intimate life was fiery, passionate, and exploratory. I truly believed in this person being my one. Fast forward 6 years, and we're married with one child. We'll call him Arthur. Arthur brought us very close, and we had both had issues in our professional lives finding things we enjoyed. I myself would stay employed and constantly look for better opportunities to keep a roof over our heads, food in our bellies, and clothes on our backs. Taylor did not work for the first 3 years of our marriage, and we struggled. We were evicted from 2 homes. One because we shared an apartment with her sister, and she spent all of the rent money 3 months in a row. We were young, foolish, and trusted the wrong family member. The second, she had started working for a short while, enough for us to find a place and get out of my parents' place, who were more than gracious to let us move in until I could get us back on our feet. Even though my STBXW wouldn't lift a finger to help cook, clean, or pay any of the bills until this point, she quit immediately without telling me, thinking I would just get a third job to go with my already second. I have done food delivery freelance as a duo with my father, and we would spend whole weeks and weekends practically working a third job. It was too late, however. Speaking with my brother, who works as a welder for a large company, about the situation, and asking for advice on what to do, as he had always served to be better with money than I, though I always made sure we had when we absolutely needed, even if it meant I had to work 20 hours a day to get it. My brother and his wife offered us a room in their apartment, as his wife preferred their newborn to skip in the same room as them in a bassinet. I get a job as a forklift driver in my brother's company and start making good money. My wife at the time gets a job similar, but with a different company, and within 1 month stops receiving paychecks, but is gone all day as though she's at work. COVID is first hitting the US at this time, and tests are in short supply. She tells us she believes she has it, but cannot get a test to confirm. We have to isolate for 2 weeks, both my family and my brothers, and our company did not pay us for this time. We each lost up to 30 hours of overtime on top of our regular 40. Come to find out, she fans out because she had gotten fired for not showing up. When we found out, my brother confronts me and tells me this was against the rules that we agreed to when he first extended help. If either of us quit or lost our jobs, we would be out. I agreed, as I thought this would be a no-brainer and driving force to help. My wife joined the workforce and learned that it is normal to have to work. I had never had to kick somebody out of my home before, and certainly never a romantic partner. It was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, and what I believed was for the betterment of my family. It started as me asking, to telling her she broke the agreement and had to leave. She was about 5 months pregnant at this time, and my plan was to convince her to stay with her parents so I could keep working and save up enough money to get a modular home, and she agreed reluctantly. I could tell she was hurt. But she put me in this position where I felt no other choice would achieve our goals, and all I wanted was to give her the life I believed she deserved at the time. This was my mistake, and what I believe she used to justify her further actions. I had been saving for months at this point, and my higher paying wage was really paying off. To prevent my wife from being irresponsible with the finances, again, my brother and I had an arrangement: half of the rent I pay to him, an extremely fair market amount for a single room place, went into an envelope. After 9 months of saving, I estimated I should have just over 6,500.00. I begin the process of searching for a mobile modular home for rent to own. Find one. Show her. It's perfect. Everything we need for the time to welcome our bundle of joy into the world. This brings us to when things truly began to derail unbeknownst to me. I had sacrificed so much for this love I so passionately fed, fanned, cherished, worshipped, and desired. I had reached a point in my life where I was now going to be a father, and my dreams of having a family, and being a present, just, and educational parent, and husband were beginning to be realized. What I didn't know is Sil didn't know of the arrangement, and thought all of the money was theirs as she proceeded to buy every single Jeffree Star makeup palette released within the year before, effectively using all but 220.00 of my 6,500.00. I was furious, irate, upset, and embarrassed. Once again I had learned I had trusted the wrong person, and with this omen that flew right over my head I did not see what was happening. Fast forward to 1.5 years. We live with my parents again. Arthur is born and going to turn 3 this summer. It is January. My wife asks me to take her to the ER for what she thinks is a really bad UTI, or yeast infection. No, it was chlamydia. I walk into my home after a 12-hour shift the next morning, not having heard the results yet, to be berated by both her and my own mother, accusing me of cheating. Right now I will state this: I have never went outside the boundaries of my marriage, or entertained the attention of another in any way, as I was head over heels for this woman, who I believe to be so perfect. I will admit that I am not, however, perfect. There were times my words were sharper than intended. I am a very straightforward and blunt person, and she struggled with this sometimes, as she has many unresolved traumas from growing up in the foster system. My attitude could have been better sometimes, and I needed more time to learn patience. I know I am not without fault, and take accountability for my shortcomings as a husband and father, and tried to grow from them every day, even if steroids taken sometimes were smaller or larger than others. With that said, the beratement began with my mother telling me I had royally fat cat up, to which my wife started walking and screaming the phrase, "Who is she? Who is your whore?" I was completely blindsided. Never would I have imagined of all things the clap would have come to my home. She immediately pressed us to go get tested. I agreed, knowing I hadn't done anything. I now had absolute confirmation she had stepped out on me at some point, but when or with who I did not know. Some things started adding up. I thought back to a moment a few months before our anniversary, and I had asked if she would like to get dolled up and go out to dinner, and maybe go for a move drive or long walk together. I remember she looked me dead in the eyes, and with the most ice I have ever heard in a woman's voice, she said, "I will never get dolled up because you want me to." I had noticed her makeup was being used up, but I couldn't recall her wearing any, and she was always needing more. Oh, how naive, blind, and stupid I am. Once we arrived at a local Instacare center, we quickly explained what was going on, filled out a questionnaire, and waited. My wife requested a separate and female physician. This hurt, knowing that she was really going to pull out all the stops to frame me this way, and not simply giving up on this charade, and peaceably talk like adults. My physician came in, inspected me, told me I showed no signs, but that a dirty cat's urine samples are the best and most effective tests. After this, they had me join my wife in her room with her physician. Both her and the nurse glared at me the entire time as my wife uncontrollably sobbed, turning the waterworks on so bad she broke out in hives. I'd never seen her this way before. I was terrified. My life I had sacrifices so much for was kindling to the bonfire that would eventually burn this forsaken and murdered passion to the ground. Both the physician and nurse spoke to me in accusatory tones the entire visit, saying things to her like, "Don't worry, soon enough you'll be able to get past this with proof." The proof shocked them. 2 years leading up to this, my wife had been rejecting most of my advances for intimacy, chalking it up to postpartum, which I was 100,000% understanding of. I would try to initiate, but not too much, as I didn't want her to feel disrespected. I just wanted to worship her the way I knew best, and reconnect a bond that had been patiently waiting to be reignited. The next day comes. I'm negative, she's negative. Strange. I ask if we can go after I get home from work to get a physical copy, so we can possibly look into what may have went wrong with the hospital's test, as I thought something serious may still be wrong with her intimate areas. She said it wasn't necessary. We had what we needed, and we were past it. I pressed again and emphasized that I wanted this to happen. Then she lost it, screaming at me over the phone on my lunch break, saying, "I'm positive there you heard what you wanted. Are you happy?" I was dumbstruck. She had tried to lie to me and hide the fact that she was still positive. I immediately requested 2 more tests over a month and a prescription for both of us to take care of this and prevent any more harm. By this time she's realized her game is up with me. I tell her she has 1 day to move out and into her mom's place, that I'll take Arthur 3 days a week. I couldn't do more as my job had me up at 4 a.m., and I wouldn't get home until 5 p.m. At least not having him overnight. I was always asking to talk to him on the phone, see if I could take him for lunch, or even give her a child-free day. We agreed on this for 1 month, to see how we felt about everything, as she had not admitted to anything no matter how hard I pressed her. In an appointment with her OB/GYN, she was begging, pleading, desperately for an answer to how this could have happened in a monogamous marriage. The looks of dread in the eyes of the staff when they looked at me, seeing the embarrassment they felt for me, it broke me. Still she clings to the lie that nothing happened and she just magically contracted chlamydia. We go home, and I suggest couple therapy on hopes it may get her to open up. Maybe I thought she is worried that I might lose it when she confesses and do something horrible. This train of thought hurt deeper than any other part of this whole ordeal, but made the most sense. I'd never been a violent man, never laid a finger on her in even a playful way that could be misinterpreted, and she didn't come right out and say it, but assume this was the most logical explanation at the time. Our therapy session comes around, she cancels day of. We reschedule. This process repeats 3 times before I decided it was time to cut my losses. I start planning. In 6 months' time, if I cannot get it out of her, I will kick her out. I confide in the only friend I have, who happens to be female. She is nothing more than a friend to me. My best friend died this same year, and this girl is the mother of his children. We were all very good friends, so I would ask her for female perspective from time to time about things. Hills my wife would choose to die on that I didn't understand, in arguments or little mannerisms I wanted to be able to communicate effectively through, so I could try to be empathetic and not narrow-minded. My wife went through my phone one night and found our conversation and blew up at me, saying I was cheating again and she couldn't trust me. I told her then she had one last chance to admit what had happened to me, or we were done for good, as all the evidence staunchly supports my claim of innocence in all of this. Innocence of infidelity, that is. Not of being vulnerable or weakened of heart through this painful experience. Later that night, when I pick her up from work, she tells me when she moved into her mom and dad's, after my brother made me kick her out, she went to a friend's, and he said her not taking no for an answer when she wanted to leave. Please keep in mind, I do not victim blame, shame, or try to discredit anyone who has claims of SA, as I was at a young age myself, but things didn't add up. This would have taken place 3 months before my son was born. In my state, when babies are born, both mom and baby must take an STI test as well as mom during OB visits up to birth. And while symptoms can lay dormant, my physician explained it would show up regardless. Mom and baby were clean at birth. No chlamydia, which means she lied to me again. I was devastated at this realization that still she wanted to hide the truth. I still don't know for sure everything that happened, but for a while I was completely broken by this. How was I not worthy, and somehow some other person, or persons were after all the sacrifices I had made? Was I not in the least bit deserving of the love I had poured out in return? How could it have come to this? I felt empty, hollow, like a milkweed whose seeds had been caught by the wind and blown away. Months later she finally confessed she just wanted me because I would give her a child, which is all she wanted me for, and then be with whatever men she wanted, knowing I would be a good father. She used me for what many men believe to be the most sacred purpose in life. I love my son, but sometimes it does hurt to know he was a token for her to gain, and then cast me aside like refuse when my usefulness to her was completed. At this point, Arthur is my top priority. I work 14-hour days to provide as a single father through 2 jobs. All my money issues are solved, and I've paid off all of my debts aside from a couple I'm actively working on. Initially when we separated I wanted revenge. I installed apps to try to do this, and after having multiple prospects and beginning conversations I realized this was not who I am. That I am not a fling kind of person, and that to me intimacy is a bond-building sacred moment for lovers to share, no matter how vanilla or explorative. One of these ladies I quickly realized had been really engaging in our conversations. She told me she'd like to continue our conversations and maybe meet up. This actually kind of overwhelmed me. Thoughts rushed through my mind of our conversations the last few weeks, and I realized that I didn't want to hurt anybody by rushing into something blindly with nothing but revenge on my mind, as that would only make me as low as my ex. But I could tell I really wanted to try with this girl. I ghosted her out of fright. I started working out and going to therapy again. After 6 months I decided to reach back out. Score. She was sad I stopped talking to her. But after explaining myself she was exponentially understanding, as she was going through something both similar and in some ways worse, although she was almost 3 years along fighting for a divorce. We'll call her Amethyst. She is sweet, appreciative, a little more plump than my typical kind of girl, but I am not really a very superficial person. I care more for personality and willingness to show gratitude. This girl is everything my ex is not: giving, kind, soft-hearted, understanding, ambitious, and an extremely hard worker, as she has 3 jobs to put her through school. We've been dating for 7 months now. She's met my son. Things are finally working out, I believe, but only time will tell. Taylor, if you see this, I hope you truly understand what you have done to me. The pieces of me I have cut away and said goodbye to that will never exist within me again. And the man in the mirror I had to kill to survive what you put me through. Second story. Wife's friend slowly becoming my AP. Wife's married Colombian friend recently started DMing me. At first nothing sexual or flirty, but little by little I notice her asking deeper questions, inquiring about my wife and I's sex life, confiding in me her frustrations, her husband, etc. She also told me not to tell my wife anything as she doesn't want drama. The other day she asked me if I ever cheated, and I told her yes in the past, and she said she has too, and she missed the rush and excitement of it. I told her I do too, and she asked me if I was good at keeping secrets. So I obviously have an opportunity here. Just not sure if I should go down this path and enjoy the excitement or try to dodge and weave my way out of it. Update. So a few weeks ago my wife's friend randomly started chatting and flirting with me via a throwaway IG. At first I was hesitant and suspicious, but I finally bit the bullet and gave in to temptation and flirted back with her, which led to full-blown sexting. We made an agreement to keep this strictly sexual and cut it off whenever either of us felt it's run its course or if things got too risky. Since then we've had 3 hookups at my workplace, since I have after-hours access and it's essentially empty on weekends. Her husband works a late shift on Saturdays, and I told my wife I've been filling in vacation days for a coworker, so we arranged to meet at my workplace. All 3 hookups have been fucking amazing. Her hubby doesn't know what he's missing. Apparently he doesn't fuck her and might have a porn addiction, but that's his problem, not mine. This woman is sensual, sexual, open-minded, verbal, reciprocates. A lot of what I don't get with my own wife sexually she gives openly and willingly. We are also aroused by the whole scenario and have already made plans for a few different scenarios. Next week I made plans with her hubby to grab some beers after work and arranged to meet him at a bar at 6 p.m. I'll be leaving work at 4 p.m., but I'm gonna tell him I'm running late and will be there by 7 p.m. Meanwhile I'll be at their place at 5 p.m. So it'll give us a good hour or so to fuck in their marital bed. Her idea, not mine, but I was going to suggest it at some point myself. She wants to call him while he's waiting for me at the bar, and we're fucking in their bed. We both want to hear his voice while we fuck slowly and enjoy the adrenaline rush knowing he's waiting for me, and I'm balls deep in his wife, no condom. At 6 p.m. or so I'll jump in an Uber and meet him with his wife's juices still fresh on my dick and nuts. The next session we are planning will flip-flop and we are going to fuck in my wife and I's marital bed. This is her main fantasy and it turns her on even more than the previous one. This one is easier since my wife travels for work at times and she has some trips lined up. She says she wants to wear something of my wife's while we fuck. I suggested some stockings and my wife's fancy diamond necklace while she only wear on special occasions. I will update again as these scenarios occur. Update to this whole situation. So we couldn't wait any longer and finally did our first scenario in the most amazing fashion. We just couldn't wait another week, so I told her hubby last minute if he wanted to grab beers after work last night, which he said cool. Wife's friend confirmed with me that he said he was gonna hang with me after work, so I got ready and went straight to their place. When I got there she opened the door and was in a robe. But as soon as she closed the door she disrobed and had some skimpy lingerie that he apparently had bought for her. She looked fucking amazing. We went to the bedroom, and I had her straddling me. And we were making out when I told her I had to call her husband to let him know I would run late. I dialed him as she sucked on my neck and nibbled my other ear. When he picked up, my breath was short from the spurt of adrenaline knowing I was in his house, on his bed, his wife straddling me. I slowly told him I got held up and to give me an hour. He said okay. She apparently was so turned on by that she immediately got soaking wet. I undid her top and sucked her tits when all of a sudden her phone rang. It was him telling her he was gonna run a little late and she spoke with him while I gently sucked her nipples. They hung up and that's when we went at it full stream. I got the most amazing head on his side of the bed, her on her knees staring up at me. I ate her pussy out also on his side of the bed. She was so wet and I was just lapping up all her juices. She rode me, I fucked her missionary, doggy. She came at least 3 times and when it was my turn to come she insisted I nut in her mouth. I did sort of fuck it up though as I kept pumping and half came in her and half in her mouth. I didn't pull out fast enough, lol. Honestly, this was some of the best sex I've ever had. As we finished up we agreed to plan this week for our scenario 2 at my place. I ended up taking an Uber to the bar and had a few beers with him while I still felt my dick pulsating from the rush of the fuck. You anti-cheaters really don't know what you're missing. Third story. Nice guy finishes last again. My wife, 47F, and I, 45M, have been married for 22 years and have 3 kids under 18. We look like the perfect traditional family. Some homeschools the kids, very involved at church, etc. Our marriage has never been as great as it looks from the outside, but we've made our home a pretty peaceful, stress-free place for our kids. I am a prototypical nice guy, TM, hate conflict, rarely say no, suppress my own needs, provide well for my family, but pretty passive and boring. My wife is a saint. She's well respected in our social circles, most involved church friends, the go-to advisor and confidant for all her siblings, and adored by our boys. 3 years ago, my wife had a serious health issue that put her in bed for most of 4 or 5 months. During that time, I took care of the kids, the house, and her while working full-time from home. While she expressed appreciation for taking care of everything, she also felt neglected because I wasn't spending much time with her. While she was ill, she decided to learn a new language, and I encouraged it since it gave her something to do. To help her learn Mandarin, she started using apps where she could converse with people in other countries who also wanted to practice their English. She's attractive, a quick learner, and a great teacher, which earned her lots of praise and validation. Soon, I was hearing all about her discussions with her new friends. The conversation sounded innocuous and it made her happy, so I didn't have any reason to object. She mostly talked about women she connected with, but occasionally, she mentioned young men, usually referred to as a kid. A Ukrainian kid that she liked so much that she tried to set him up with a young lady we know. A kid in Morocco that had such an interesting life. A guy working on his PhD in China who she helped translate English language white papers for his research. I remember being pretty annoyed about her asking me to help summarize the papers. Also ostensibly to help learn the language, my wife started watching Asian dramas movies. Almost every night, she takes a long bath to unwind and binge watches some rom-com, usually until I'm asleep or close to it. She's always told me that she appreciates how clean and wholesome the shows are because of the censorship there. A few weeks ago, I happened to see some pretty racy stuff in one of our streaming histories that was quite out of character for her and made me curious about what else was going on. So I started snooping. For the past 3 years, while telling me that I needed to get counseling because I wasn't meeting her emotional needs, and telling me that she was done initiating sex, she's been progressively forming closer and closer bonds with other men, and our connection has dwindled to roommates, co-parents. She invested as much emotional energy into the Ukrainian kid as her own kids, and even asked me if we could sponsor him to come to the US. The Moroccan guy was infatuated with her, and she told him if she was younger and not married, she'd go further with him. The PhD student was the shocker, though. For at least the past 2 years, while our sex life has dropped to zero, she's been texting with him every morning and evening through an app that is locked on her phone. They're sexting almost every day, sending video and pictures and video calls when I'm out of the house. She tells him she loves him. They call each other husband and wife. She tells him she wants to do things with him, that she has never expressed an interest with me, or has specifically told me she doesn't like. She compliments his looks. I can't remember the last time she complimented mine, and I'm a decent-looking guy. She talks about our kids with him, shares pictures of outings, never mentions me. Maybe she's told him we're divorced. I don't think she's ever met the guy in person, but highly suspect she would, given the opportunity. I haven't confronted her about it yet, and it's been surreal watching her act normal, though I suppose this has been normal for years now. I don't think she suspects I know, though the morning she discovered her password for the app was changed, she was crying. I thought she might confess, but no. The app is still there with the password reset, and she's on her phone all the time, still. I'm struggling with what I feel about all of it. I don't really feel hurt. Frankly, I find it pretty pathetic, but I do feel used. I've been her piggy bank and servant while she's replaced me as husband. It's not like we had a perfect marriage. I had faults that I'm sure contributed to it. I certainly could have been more assertive and affirming, though I never refused sex or insulted her. I have struggled from time to time with viewing porn, a major source of conflict in our marriage. Though I haven't used it in a while and have no desire to now, I feel like I don't have any moral authority. Maybe what we've done is morally equivalent and we just deserve each other. Since she stayed before, maybe she gets a free pass on this one. I want our kids to have an intact home and our worlds, especially hers, will be completely destroyed if our friend's church find out about this. I know I'm supposed to forgive and that's our kids' best hope for a normal life. I'm also tired of making my life decisions based on what I'm supposed to do. Fourth story. I found out that my fiancé was cheating with a guy that proposed to her. I, 24 am, found out that my fiancé, 26F, was cheating with her ex that proposed to her. One day, we were sitting on couch and watching TV while my partner was on her phone, which is pretty normal thing. Most of the time she was watching videos on TikTok, so I wasn't giving it too much attention. But suddenly I checked what she was watching since she seemed pretty invested, and saw that she was messaging her ex. Later, I confronted her with a question if she is still messaging with any of guys that she had something with, to which she assured me she wasn't. I got suspicious and decided to check her messages. I know I broken her privacy, but she lied to me and left me with no choice. I found out that they were chatting for some time, and that he was writing her about their past relationship, and how he proposed to her. How he would move closer to her if she found him a job closer to her, and even sending her the ring that he proposed to her with, stating that he got it fixed and should fit her now. My partner's response was cold, neutral, but still she didn't end the conversation and continued even though he was writing more of that shit and trying to get her back. For me, this was super weird and I decided to confront her with what I found. She was, to my surprise, pretty transparent about it and told me almost everything. She said she takes him only as a friend and that I shouldn't worry about it, so I asked her about a ring and all that stuff that he writes and told her that I don't like it. We had a little argument about it. She said that I am just jealous and shouldn't take it so seriously, and that if I truly trusted her I wouldn't worry about it. I asked if she could block him and break contact with him, which she did, but it left me in a weird spot where I still don't know if I just overreacted, should have broken up with her, or if my reaction was adequate. Any advice would be appreciated.